Welcome back to the channel. Happy New Year's. I'm Zach, this is Brandon, and this is Dominic. We're 9 to 5 Tactical. Today we're going to be reviewing the CZ P07.
Onto the specs. This is a hammer-fired polymer frame pistol chambered in 9mm or 40 Smith & Wesson. Has an overall length of 7.2 inches, height of 5.3 inches, width of 1.46 inches, and it weighs in at 27.7 ounces. It has a 3.75 inch cold hammer forged barrel with a slide finished in black nitride. It comes with 3-dot sights and double action, single action trigger. Double action pull weight is about 7 pounds and the single action trigger weight is about 3.5 pounds. It has a 15+1 magazine capacity and an MSRP of $489. Alright, so onto the unboxing. The CZ P07 does come in a nice hardcover box. It does have 3 locks, 2 right here and 1 right here in the center. You gotta squeeze it in. And starting off with the gun, here is the CZ P07. We'll just check to make sure it's unloaded. Good there. It comes with 2 magazines, 2 15-round magazines. This is actually an aftermarket base plate, so we'll just ignore that. It also comes with a dummy round for dry fire, and it does have a rubber tip on it. Next, it will come with the interchangeable back straps that you can swap out here. You have a small, medium, and a large. It has the interchangeable safety selectors due to the Omega system in the gun. You can swap out the decocker for ambidextrous safety selectors instead. Also has extra rubber tips for the primer in the dummy round. You can swap them out after they get worn in. It has your usual safety lock. And your encyclopedia of the CZ manual here. Also comes with a barrel swab and a bore cleaner. That has everything in the box. Alright, so starting off the review, we always start with the out-of-the-box value. So for this one, I gave it an 8 out of 10. The main reason being is, of course, before, I did like all the other reviews, they'll give you 2 mags. I was for at least 3, but that's just kind of a given there. So a nice addition that comes with is actually a bore brush and a barrel swab, which is very nice to have. A majority of guns that you get nowadays do not come with these, so this is actually a very nice addition to have in the gun box itself. I did give it points for this. And lastly, for everything else, it did come with adjustable back straps, which is very nice. I do love adjustability among all platforms. That way it fits to your hand specifically. The normal, the lock for the gun, the manual. It also comes with the dummy round, because this firearm actually cannot be dry fired empty. You do need a dummy round with a rubber primer, as well as coming with the ambidextrous safety selectors. So basically, it has the Omega trigger system in this firearm, so you can swap out the ambidextrous decocker and run only single action with safety selectors instead if you wanted to, which is a very nice touch. So I give this an 8 out of 10.
Alrighty, so for this section, I gave this a 9 out of 10. The reason why I gave it a 9 out of 10 is that it comes in a hard case that I thought was very valuable, that you're able to take it out to the range. And then the cleaning tools. I've never seen a cleaning set within a handgun case before, so I gave this a pretty high rating because the bore brush and the rod cleaner honestly surprised me quite a bit, so that's why I gave it a 9 out of 10.
So for box value, I'm giving this an 8 because it comes with a plastic hard case, which is pretty nice. It has some good foam cutouts, perfect for your magazine. Gun fits nicely, nothing really moves around. Most boxes, like a Glock case I've seen before, it's completely open. Everything just kind of fumbles around, gets unorganized. It also comes with a barrel swab, which is not standard. Lock, pretty normal, and a dummy round, which is pretty nice, as most hammer-fired firearms are self-destructive when trying to dry fire on an empty chamber. So that's kind of nice. Also, it comes with replaceable back straps that fit your hand better. You have small or large hands, you can kind of personalize it for yourself. Also has the Omega safety selectors here, which is ambidextrous, so that's pretty nice. And it comes with a pretty beefy manual, which is like probably the thickest firearms manual I've ever seen with a pistol. With all that being said, I still scored an 8 out of 10 because I do wish it came with a 3rd magazine.
So next topic, we're gonna talk about ergonomics, and that includes the grip texture, the slide serrations. The first impression that you get from touching the gun is what we're gonna be scoring next. For this, I rated this a 6 out of 10. I think the grip texture feels really nice in your hands. It's super duper sticky. So if you have wet hands or like you have grease on your hands, I feel like it's gonna be sticking pretty well. And I also think that the grip texture on the thumb is really unique and really aggressive. I thought they did a really great job there. And next, for the grip angle, I do like the angle. It feels pretty natural. So if you're gonna line up your sights, I am able to see both sights at the same time. Nothing's too high, nothing's too low. So it does feel pretty natural in that. And speaking of the grip, it does come with 3 adjustable back straps. The one that we have right now is a small, but it does come with medium and large. So that's pretty nice. The one thing I didn't like about this gun is that the slide release was a little bit too forward so that my primary thumb wasn't able to hit it, so it was always slipping in the backside. I did wish that it was able to be shifted back a little bit more and the decocker back also, so that my thumbs are able to manipulate both of them at the same time. But yeah, other than that, like, gave it a 6 out of 10.
Okay, as for the ergonomics, the grip fit my hands pretty well. I do have large hands and long fingers. The grip texture areas are aggressive. I do wish there were different areas. I kind of wish it was higher up here on the palm swell. The palm swell here is actually not that accentuated, so I do wish that was a little bit more aggressive. The reason why I wish the grip texture was a little bit higher is because I tend to have a higher grip than standard. I don't normally have the thumbs forward, which they do have the nice texture here if you do go thumbs forward. That's just a personal issue for me. If you train with thumbs forward, this will be great for you, as the texture up here where you press your thumbs forward acts like a gas pedal and is really nice to have. So here's where I dock a few points. The slide release here is kind of not in a great position for me. Even though I have big hands, the decocker here, which is thick boy, is kind of in the way where a regular release would be. So instead of hitting the slide release right there, I actually ended up hitting the decocker. Now for the slide serrations, I did find them pretty aggressive. I do like that they're actually catching on my skin rather well. The only problem is that the slide is so thin and small that you're really not getting much real estate, even though they're rather aggressive. Now, with all of that, I did give this category a score of 6 out of 10.
All right, so my score on ergonomics is going to be 6 out of 10. So what I found for this gun was that the grip texture is quite nice. It has a raised stipple that's similar to that of sandpaper. I think it's very grippy whenever you put your hand over it. Also, the front and rear has some ribs that are quite protruded. I think it does pretty well when it comes to getting your hand in there. A nice touch was that they did add some texture up here in the front of the trigger guard as well. For those that like to have their grip meet up here for some reason, that is a nice touch, as well as having it up here where your thumb would rest if you're doing a thumbs forward type of grip. Moving on to the mag release, I do have kind of small hands, so of course I can't reach it normally. So I do have to bring my grip to get it, but that's pretty standard. It's not too big a deal. I do like how it is very easy to press. It doesn't take too much effort to drop that mag. The slide release is also quite large as well. Just like the other guys, I did find that I can't reach it with my hand because the decocker's in the way. It's large, but I still have to hit it with my support hand, which was pretty easy to do regardless. And typical of CZ, they do have the slide lower down into the grip, which leaves you not that much room for the slide to be protruding out. Now the serrations on them are very deep. They are very nice to grip onto, but the fact that the slide is so far down to the grip, it makes it quite difficult to actually actuate this firearm. So lastly to talk about is the grip angle. Like Zach said, this is a natural 1911 grip angle. It's very easy to acquire sights when getting into your hands initially. On top of that, lastly, which a lot of people don't talk about, is that there is a lanyard hole here right at the bottom. I did not find a use for it. Majority of people probably won't, but it is an option that's there for people. So that's the reason why I give this a 6 out of 10.
So moving into the trigger here, which I believe is one of the most important parts of a firearm. Now this can be a make or break for some people. So now if you did run this firearm in double action, it is about 7 to 8 pound trigger pull. It is a bit unnecessarily heavy, but I do understand its intended purpose, where it is to prevent any negligent discharges and making sure that if you really are to pull that trigger, you really mean it. So I can see the trade-off there and what it's intended for, but it's just something I'm not a fan of. So moving past the double action, we get into the single action here. The single action does have a pretty consistent take up and a really defined wall, and it is a rather crisp break. The break is past 90 degrees, something I'm not really a big fan of. I do prefer a more 90-degree break. And moving on here, we'll see the reset. It's rather far forward from the rear where it broke. You do hear a nice audible click. I do feel like that's rather far away, and I feel like that can really affect your follow-up shots, and you just won't be as quick with that kind of length of reset. Now, as for the score, I did give this a 6 out of 10.
All right, so on to my opinions about the trigger. So starting off with the double action, this does have a rated to 7-pound trigger pull, but we found right out of the box, this definitely feels more like 9 to 10. Honestly, it's crazy heavy. I would not recommend this to a majority of people because of how heavy that is. I do imagine that after a couple hundred rounds, that may get broken in, but it is like extensively heavy. Like almost my hands are almost shaking just trying to pull this thing back all the way. The brake is very nice though. It goes right to the rear and has a nice defined wall before it goes off. I do really enjoy this trigger a lot because of that reason, especially when you get into the single action. Which single action, with it being at 3.5 pounds, that's right around where I do like my trigger weight to be for pulls. And I think this is a good contender for that. Single action here, nice pull, and then you get to the, there's actually 2 walls that you get to before the break happens. So there's one right there. For the walls, you can actually see, or hear and see that there's a defined wall on the single action. Very defined wall, and then right after you hit that wall though, and just breaks. Very, very crisp. I do really enjoy that about this firearm. So with that being said, I do enjoy this trigger. I was gonna give it a very high score until I got to the reset. All right, so for this reset, it does break around the 135-degree mark, but when it comes to resetting, it goes almost all the way back to 90 degrees for it actually. I get that reset click right there. Probably around that 100-degree mark. So if you are shooting this firearm and it breaks around the 135-degree mark, it will reset around the 100-degree mark, which is pretty far in my opinion. So the trigger pull itself I thought was very good, but the reset makes it hard to do fast follow-up shots because of how far the distance is to get that reset. So with that being said, I gave this a 6 out of 10.
So for the trigger part, I gave it a 5 out of 10. The reason why I gave it a 5 out of 10 is that it does have a good audible reset, like the guys were talking about. But the reason why I kind of knocked off a lot of points was that it didn't reset at the 90 degrees how I normally want my firearms to be for the trigger. When I was shooting it, I did have a pretty, it was actually a weird feeling when we were pulling back the trigger all the way to the trigger guard. That's where it breaks. I wasn't a big fan of that. For the other guns that we've been shooting, they've all broken at either the 90 or had a really short reset. This gun actually has a pretty long reset that I'm not normally used to, and I didn't really feel like I would get a lot of benefit shooting it for follow-up shots. So that's why I gave it a 5 out of 10.
Next category we're going to get to is the sights or optics. So this gun does come with a 3-dot fixed sight that we did find glowed pretty well in low light conditions. We all shot it towards nighttime and we found that these glow pretty well compared to other competitors that we've shot so far, like the Hellcat Pro or the X Macro. The front sight recesses into the frame and the rear sight is a dovetail setup. So with this, I would say it would be difficult to do one-handed slide racking. Now where it loses most of its points is because the P07 does not come optic ready. CZ does have a product where you can buy that completely replaces the rear sight and puts a plate on top where you can actually mount a red dot, but I just don't think that's ever as good as actually getting a direct mounted red dot where it's actually like milled into the side and everything. So I did knock off majority of points for that. So with all that being said, I gave this a 4 out of 10.
For this section, I gave this a 6 out of 10. The iron sights are really nice. It is a 3-dot system and we were shooting at the range in the dark. The front sight and rear sights were glowing, so that's pretty nice. But the reason why I knocked off a few points is because that it wasn't an optic ready system. We normally shoot with red dots, so that's what I'm used to. I wish this was an optic mounting plate here so I could put my hollow sun on there and just start rocking with it. But yeah, I did give this a 6 out of 10. Not to be very harsh, but irons are cool, but red dots are better.
For me, I gave the sights and the optics a 5 out of 10, and here's why. The main pro here is the iron sights have a good glow at night. That's probably the only like nice thing I would have to say about it. It does have 3 dots. They're all white, which kind of makes it hard to differentiate the front from the rear. My eyes, it's just really hard for me to focus on 3 white dots, while if the rears were blacked out, I could really focus on the front sight a lot more. Now, from factory, the P07 is not optics ready. You can get a plate from them to swap here, which it's just not as secure as being able to direct mount it. And if you wanted to direct mount it, since it's not optic ready, you'd have to cut in your slide. That would immediately void the warranty. And that kind of sucks if something did go wrong. Even though I really wasn't a big fan of the iron sights, I still was able to hit out at 35 yards. At 50 yards, I started to stumble a bit as I couldn't really see the target that well with iron sights. And also, it could have just been me not having not as good honed in fundamentals and missing the target. Now, if there were more options, I definitely would give this a higher score. It just kind of sucks to be stuck with irons only, as I do prefer to run a red dot, which kind of reinforces my score of giving it only a 5 out of 10.
So next we're going to talk about magazines. And with magazines, we're going to talk about the capacity, durability, and how many rounds it holds. For the magazines, I did give this an 8 out of 10. It does come with 2 magazinos. They are metal. It does have round indicators going from 2 to 15, which is really nice. Not a lot of magazines have that. It does come with plastic base plates. Not a big fan of it. Would switch them out for metal base plates like we have here, but can't really show you yet. Just kidding. But it is 15 rounds, very standard for this size of gun, but it is really nice to have all the round indicators in the back going from 2 to 15, and that's why I gave it an 8 out of 10.
So for the magazines, I also gave it an 8 out of 10. The CZ P07 comes with some standard 15 round magazines. They do have some indicators for each round instead of 5, 10, and 15 I've seen in other manufacturers, so that's kind of nice to see how many rounds you have and not have to guess. Moving into the base plates, they are made of a high quality plastic. Even though they're really good quality, better than other manufacturers I've seen, I still really do wish that these were metal, and that is why I gave it an 8 out of 10.
All right, so on to my score for the mags. I gave it an 8 out of 10. The reason being is because they do come with only 2. I always wish they come with 3, as I said before. Just more for the range and for carrying on you. The capacity is right at the 15 rounds, so 15 plus 1 for this gun. There are other competitors that we reviewed previously that let you do at least 17 plus 1, so I did knock a point off for that. The other pro though is that it does have a full metal housing. I do enjoy that for magazines. They do tend to have a longer lifespan. Also with the round indicators, I do enjoy how it goes all the way from 2 to 15. A lot of other manufacturers don't do that, so you can actually see every single round go in and you can tell exactly how many rounds you have. A lot of them only do like 5, 10, 15, and 20 or something along those lines, so that is a huge pro there. Lastly, the base pads, I said before, they are plastic. I do wish they were metal, so I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Now moving into what I feel is also really important is the felt recoil. The gun may fit really nice in your hand, trigger's great, but once you shoot it, you may find yourself surprised or disappointed. Now when I picked up this gun, I was like, wow, this is actually pretty heavy. It's at 27 ounces, and I thought, you know, this is probably gonna shoot rather smooth, because with most other heavy firearms or pistols I've shot, it usually helps with the recoil mitigation. With my first few shots, I was actually kind of surprised by the recoil. I thought because it's heavy, it's not going to snap that much, but actually it broke my grip quite a bit. Running some drills, I ran a couple build drills, also shooting it initially for initial impressions, I did find my grip breaking a bit. Now with that being said, it wasn't the softest or the hardest, so I gave it a 7 out of 10.
So for my score for this, I gave this a 7 out of 10 for felt recoil. You'll notice with the CZ is known to make the slide integrate into the grip a little bit to help give it a lower bore axis, as well as having the extra textures right here for the thumb rest. So you can definitely tell that helps with mitigating recoil, but for the size of this firearm, I did feel it was still a little bit snappy, so I did give it a 7 out of 10.
For the felt recoil, I did rate this a 7 out of 10. We did run this at the range the other day, and I did notice that the muzzle flip was pretty high and snappy. So for the size that this is, I was thinking that this was gonna mitigate recoil a little bit for the size and how much it weighs. But for a compact gun, it was a little more snappy than I thought, and that's the reason why I gave this a 7 out of 10.
Next category we're going to get into is weapon handling. So weapon handling is basically same as ergonomics, but you're basically using all the controls under stress, such as the mag release, the serrations, the side release, everything combined, this is where we started giving it a rating. So at the range, we did run a couple of drills that we use all the controls on here. We did find a few issues in my opinion. So I gave it a 5 out of 10, starting with the mag release. As usual, I have short hands. I actually cannot reach it without breaking my grip. Not too big of a deal, honestly, because I'm already used to doing it. But I did notice that the mag release has a nice boxy design. It protrudes out pretty well from the grip, so I actually had no issues whatsoever hitting it. There's also a little bit of texture on there as well, so I imagine if you have like sweaty, greasy hands, it still should be pretty easy to hit. Moving from there to the side release. The side release, as we talked about before, can't reach with the primary hand. I am used to training with a 2011 platform, so I can easily hit that with my sport hand thumb. But I did find while I was out there was that since these cuts that were on it don't protrude out too far, I did find my thumb slipping on it a couple occasions, and my reloads did not come out the way I wanted to because I couldn't hit that lever down. It's just a little bit tight. I imagine that after a couple hundred rounds that may get fixed, get broken in a little bit, but that was just an issue that I found while I was running it. Reload in a 214. That was pretty good. All it takes is a little practice. You just gotta get good. Moving on to the front and rear serrations. As we talked about before, the slide is very small. The cuts are good, they're cut very deep, but when it comes to actually actuating them, they do get a little slippery just because of how small the slide is. I do have trouble hitting that on a couple occasions on my reloads. We did get some slow-mo footage of it, and I did have my fingers slide as I was trying to actuate it. So we'll show that as well for you. Another thing to note while I was actuating the front serrations was when you do a wraparound like this, you try pulling the slide back. You'll see that you actually tend to rub your hand against the slide release, and I feel like that kind of gets in my way. As well as with the textures right here, it is nice to have it aggressive, but I did notice that it did kind of rough up my hands a little bit when I was trying to actuate it. Moving to the rears though, I did actually not have any issues with those. Grabbing it from the rear and racking it back and forth, I didn't have really any issues. The serrations really shined in the rear, but more to the front, I think that's where most of the issues are. Lastly, just like all other times I talk about it, it does not come with a mag well. This is not too big of a deal because I do understand this is more drilled towards concealed carry. Not everyone really wants that, but personally I do. I like having the extra little pinky grip at the bottom when I am having a concealed carry pistol, so I did knock it off of points there as well. So that is the reason why I gave it a 5 out of 10.
All right, for this category, I gave this a 6 out of 10. The reasons why is that the slide serrations were actually really difficult for me to manipulate. The slide is a little thinner than most slides that I'm used to, and that the serrations are deep, but I'm not getting a good purchase out on it at all. The rear serrations, during our drills, we did do a reload one, and I did grab it from the back. I was able to do that, but the front was actually kind of difficult for me. Next, we can talk about the slide release. The slide release is not in a good position for me at all with my primary thumb. I think it's a little difficult for me to be able to hit it, so I have to break my grip or hit it with my support thumb. And I don't really want to do that to have all the manipulation off my primary hand to involve my left thumb. I think that's very important for me to be able to hit with this thumb. The next one is going to be a flared magwell. Most of my guns, I run it with a flared magwell. I just think it's really easy to be able to grab a mag and just slap it in the general area and insert the mag. So that's the 3 reasons why I gave it a 6 out of 10.
So for weapon handling, I gave it a 6 out of 10. The slide serrations are okay. I do enjoy how deep they are. They actually grab onto my finger meat pretty well. However, due to the slide design of it being thin and small, it's hard for my thumbs to grab onto it. Now, I understand its purpose, it's to reduce the reciprocating mass to help fight the recoil. Now, another thing I didn't like on the firearm here is the cocker location. The position where it is just in the way of where my thumbs would normally hit the slide release. So I am forced to do like a 1911 or 2011 style where I do have to use my support hand's thumb just to press it down. Now with the side release, I thought it was rather easy for me to hit. It's enormous, it's pretty big, and it also has some serrations here, which for me, it was rather easy to hit. I didn't find any trouble, but I know other people may have issues as it is a bit stiff, but that's something that you can be worn in eventually. Now moving on to the mag release here, it is rather enlarged, and I thought it was pretty easy for my thumb to hit. No need to break grip from my primary hand. While moving lower to the mag well, I do wish I had a flared mag well, as sometimes I did miss, but it does have a good index point here at the back, so if you line it up there, you can actually hit it off the ramp and slide it in. I've had some other firearms that don't have a flared mag well, such as the Hellcat Pro has something similar to that, and it makes it reloading just a bit easier. However, still just not as easy as actually having a flared mag well. And with that being said, that reinforces my score of a 6 out of 10.
All right, so the next category is gonna be comfort and concealability. And the questions we're gonna be answering is, does it feel good when concealing? Also, is it comfortable? For this category, I gave this a 9 out of 10. We were running this at the range the other day and I didn't have any issues with it at all. We were running and gunning with it and drawing from concealment. We were wearing hoodies, and it is the similar size to the P365X macro. And that's what I carry daily, and I didn't have any issues with this. It was actually really comfortable. I am used to this kind of firearm size, and that's why I gave it a 9 out of 10.
For comfort and concealability, I thought it was rather good. I felt it was easy to conceal. We all shared the Tier 1 holster with the X300 Lite, and we didn't notice any major printing. With that, it is a bit of a heavier firearm, so you do notice the weight compared to other guns such as the X Macro or the Hellcat Pro, which we've had in previous videos. With that being said, the CZ P07 is a rather thick gun at 1.5 inches wide, and it just wasn't as comfortable as other compacts I've carried in the past, so I gave it an 8 out of 10.
For comfort and concealability, I rated this an 8 out of 10. So we all ran it in the Tier 1 Concealed MSP holster. I didn't have too many issues with running it. I am used to a full size anyway, but since this is a compact platform, it sits right between the performance and concealability side of things. CZ did redesign the P07 to take out all the sharp edges to aid in concealability as much as possible, and I did feel that. I didn't actually have like any sharp edges digging into me or anything like that, so I thought that was a very good play by them. The only issue that I found, which is why I knocked off 2 points, was it is a hammer-fired firearm. The beaver tail is quite large, so I did see that that was digging into me a little bit. One thing I forgot to mention was the weight on this. It is 27 ounces. That does affect comfortability when carrying it. I did notice that it was a little bit heavy, especially when fully loaded with 15 rounds, but that's the reason why I knocked off 2 points. One because of beaver tail, and another one was because of the weight.
Moving in here to aftermarket support, we all like to tinker with our guns. Most of us probably never leave them stock. So here I actually give it an 8 out of 10. The P07 has been around for quite a while, and over time the aftermarket support has grown quite a bit. Companies such as M-Carbo offer a better trigger upgrade. CZ Customs and Primary Machine also offer a lot to choose from. I didn't mention all the companies, but a quick Google search should provide a plethora of information.
So for aftermarket support, I gave it an 8 out of 10. The reason being is because a majority of everything on here you can actually swap out. You can get a new trigger, you can get the optic milled out, just like I talked about before. One of the cons was there's no optic ready option there, but you can get that milled. You can get a stippling job. They also have talon grips you can add in. There's so many different things. The number one reason why that aftermarket support is so good for this gun is because you can get a flared mag well. Some guns you can't do that, but luckily this one does give you that option. So the only reason why I docked off 2 points was, one reason why is because you cannot swap out the polymer grip for a metal one, unfortunately due to the serialization of it. So that knocked off a point. Lastly, I knocked off a point because it's hard to obtain aftermarket slides. Primary Machine actually sells aftermarket slides for this, but they actually just buy the slides from CZ and then they mill them, and then they send it off at aftermarket slides. So since the slides themselves are already kind of unobtainium, it's going to be kind of hard to get that. They haven't been in stock for a while now. So that's the reason why I gave it an 8 out of 10.
For this portion, I did give it an 8 out of 10. There are a lot of third-party companies that offer replacement parts, for example, the base pads for the magazines, the triggers, the stippling jobs. You could also get this ported, which is really cool, but With that being said, there are lots of companies that do modifications to this gun since it's been out for a while, and that's why I gave it an 8 out of 10.
All right, so the final category we're gonna talk about is the price. So the price for this MSRP is $489. We looked around locally and we did find some that are in the low 400s, so that gives us a really good price for this. I gave this a 9 out of 10. The main reason being is because I think this is a solid firearm for any CCW carrier. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this for beginners, and the main reason being is because the lack of being able to dry fire it with an empty chamber. I do believe that someone brand new to firearms, it would be hard to get them into this because of having something in the chamber at all to be able to do dry fire practice. I think that just kind of gives people some worry or some anxiety when trying to practice with this firearm. So that'd be the main reason there. If you were more a seasoned CCW carrier, then perhaps this would be a good option for you, especially if you swap out the decocker for the safety selector. I'm willing to bet that does solve the majority of the issues that we ran into with reaching that slide release. So I gave it a 9 out of 10.
For the price, I gave this an 8 out of 10. You actually do get quite a bit of items within the box for $480. I do think that with that $480, you might actually put more money into modifying your gun, but it is really nice. We did talk about it was single action, double action, that you're able to interchange it. I would prefer the single action, so I love that they actually have that included in the box to have it be single action with the safety or non-safety. So I think that's really cool, and that's why I gave it an 8 out of 10.
So for the price, I think it's actually a good amount for what you're paying for. I give it an 8 out of 10. The gun is pretty cheap for a compact. MSRP around $489. Was shopping around, the lowest one I was able to find was $430. With that extra money saved, you can put that towards training as well as modifications, and also the box value, as mentioned way above in our previous point, you are getting quite a bit. You get a dummy round, training tools, cleaning stuff, even, and the barrel swab. Like, not many pistols you get will come with a barrel swab, so that's kind of nice. As well as the case. You know, the case is rather high quality compared to other companies I've seen. Like I mentioned before, though, I'll mention it again. Companies such as Glock or SIG, they don't have any nice cutouts like these to hold everything in place, so when you travel or transport it, everything is just kind of a mess. So that's just another plus for what you're paying for. So where I did knock it down 2 points is that right out of the box, it's just something I wouldn't prefer. So why did I dock off 2 points here, give it 8 out of 10? I just think the design is a bit outdated. I think double single actions just aren't the future, and it's also not great for a beginner. The reason it's not great for a beginner is because most guns on the market that are now mostly single action, from your 2011s to your striker fires like a Glock or X Macro, they all have a trigger break of 90 degrees. Most double actions like here will break past 90 degrees, and I feel like it'll be harder for them to grow into other platforms.
All right, so to end the review, we did add up all our scores. I gave it a 69, Zach gave it a 72, and Dominic gave it a 68. That brings all our averages together to a 69.6. Again, I hope everyone had a happy new year and Merry Christmas. Thank you for watching the video. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you could, leave a comment down below anything else you guys want to see on the channel. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.